In our society today, drugs are a major topic. Different drugs are treated differently depending on the situation at hand, their risks, and how they may impact the individual. With this, the debates that discuss how some drugs ought to be discriminalized and some legalized are very important today. Debates on this topic take different factors into consideration, such as the health of the public and drug users, economic factors, and, of course, criminal justice.
In my opinion, all drugs should be discriminalized and some should be legalized for many reasons. First, drugs can be very harmful to a society as a whole, as well as the drug users themselves. However, one of the main reasons as to why drugs cause so much harm is because of the shame that is surrounded by drug use. Did you ever see someone on drugs and how they reacted to them? What type of opinions did you form? What type of opinions do you think others would form? Those using drugs often feel like an outcast in society. With this, if all drugs are discriminalized and some are legalized, those in need will reach out and receive help as they know they do not have to face any consequences. Advocates state that if we stop treating drug use as such a crime, it will actually make the problem better. This would also decrease the amount of overdoses there are within a year. Do you know how many people died of overdoses last year? Approximately 110,000 individuals. That equals out to nearly 1 death every 5 minutes. Secondly, if all drugs were discriminalized and some were legalized, this would change the focus on the help that drug users deserve. Why don't many drug users seek help even if they know it's available? Because they're scared of the punishments that come along with it. With this, decriminalization and legalization shows that it is okay and that there is help. It shows that no one should be afraid to reach out. Of course, this would actually positively affect the drug issue in our world today. Also, the economic factors come into play as well. If some drugs were legalized, this would cause an economic boost. Legalized drugs would allow more companies and industries to start a new business. Think about beer distributors and liquor stores when it comes to alcohol. These businesses are considered helpful when it comes to tax revenue and jobs for the public. As discussed prior, the decriminalization and legalization of drugs can help seek rehab and treatment. If this happens, more medical buildings will be built to offer this type of help. Again, this helps the economy grow and offers jobs to those in need. Next, did you ever think about how this topic affects the criminal justice system? Studies actually show that drug use is a large factor dealing with social and racial disparities. For example, Black and Hispanic individuals are more targeted when it comes to drug-related offenses. Prisons see more of these individuals related to drug use, even though drug use rates are actually pretty similar throughout all races. With this, by decriminalizing all drugs and legalizing others, our society, especially the African American and Hispanic communities, will see a decrease in arrests that come along with drug offenses. In today's world, multiple prisoners are stuck in jail due to drug use and drug addictions. What does this do to the prisons? It causes overcrowding. By legalizing some drugs and decriminalizing all of them, the prisons will not be overcrowded. Decriminalization will take some drug offenses off mandatory minimal sentences. Prisons will be used to house criminals that commit higher crimes such as murder or theft. The legalization of some drugs will also help the criminal justice system to focus more on the dangerous substances that are out there and find ways to help the public because of them. For example, the system would focus more on opioids such as heroin, which can cause a greater risk to the public as a whole. Did you ever take into consideration how the use of drugs can actually positively affect the medical world? What do you think of when thinking about drugs in a hospital? Do you think about how the multiple patients are affected by drugs come and go in each day? Or do you think about that one person who is in and out of a hospital because of drugs? Instead of only thinking about the negative stigma surrounding drugs, think about how it will enhance medical research. By decriminalizing all drugs and legalizing others, it allows medical researchers to run tests and studies on participants without the threat of punishments. This can open new doors to treatments and medicines that may positively affect the world one day. We also take into consideration the rights of individuals. Think about the rights of an individual when dealing with the topic of an abortion. An individual should have the ability to make the choices about their own bodies. With this, if an individual desires to use drugs to make themselves feel better, then that is their choice. If it does not harm or negatively impact others, These individuals ultimately are able to decide what they want to put in their bodies. Overall, the topic of drug-related issues has been a major topic in our society, and it only is becoming larger. By decriminalizing all drugs and legalizing some, our society will most likely see positive effects. Not only will our society grow, but our economy and medical research will flourish as well. The criminal justice system will also see better results. Although drugs can be seen to have negative effects, perhaps changing the perspective on them can help individuals seek help, and the use of drugs might be actually decreased.
The decriminalization of all drugs and legalization of some can cause multiple problems within our society today, causing negative effects as a whole. The potential for increased drug use is a problem that arises with this topic. Legalization and discrimination could transmit the message that drug use is okay, which could increase drug use overall and among young people in particular. Approximately 61% of drug use among 8th graders went up between 2016 to 2020. Why should we give these young children more of an opportunity to access drugs easily? In our world today, drug use has actually already increased as a result of decriminalization. By decriminalizing drugs and legalizing some of them, our world is giving the okay to do drugs. Whatever happened to those DARE programs in school? Wouldn't we be going against those pledges and ideas? Legalizing certain drugs, more specifically highly addictive ones, may have horrible health consequences. For example, legalizing opioids could lead to more overdose deaths and addiction problems. Legalizing highly addictive drugs would make it easier to access drugs to the general population. When these drugs are more available, more people will be tempted to try them, including individuals who may not have otherwise experimented with them. This increased accessibility can lead to a higher number of people being addicted to these substances. Legalizing highly addictive substances will lead to an increase in the number of people who develop substance use disorders and dependencies. This has an impact on people's lives and puts more of a burden on healthcare systems and resources. Widespread addiction can have a negative impact on a town's social fabric, leading to higher crime rates, broken families, and a decline in general communal well-being. There is concern that legalizing highly addictive drugs could become a gateway to more harmful substances. For example, some say that marijuana legalization can be a gateway drug to more harmful substances. Have you ever walked into a medical setting and thought just how many individuals are there because of drugs? How many 911 calls are there daily due to drug use? Drug usage plays a heavy weight on healthcare systems. Numerous health complications such as overdose situations, infectious diseases such as HIV and AIDS from sharing needles, mental health conditions, and chronic medical conditions can result from substance misuse and addiction. The expense of treating chronic health issues can be high, and taxpayers and insurance plans frequently shoulder the financial burden. Not only can drug usage put a heavy burden on healthcare, but can also tear families apart. So why are we trying to increase this problem? On a variety of levels, drug addiction can cause social unrest. Children may be neglected or exposed to dangerous settings as a result of families being split apart. Communities that struggle with pervasive addiction frequently see an increase in crime, a pressure on services, and a general degradation in quality of life. Drug use has a harmful side effect that also impacts people who do not use drugs. For instance, in accidents brought on by people under the influence of narcotics, innocent bystanders may suffer harm. Drug regulation opponents are concerned about a number of complex issues. Because different drugs require different guidelines, it can be challenging to ensure that the drugs are safe. Contamination in medicines is a harmful thing that we wish to avoid. It can be difficult to regulate who can manufacture, sell, and distribute pharmaceuticals. To ensure that only authorized individuals may handle pharmaceuticals and that they don't wind up on the black market, we need a secure system. In addition, it's challenging to prevent illegal drug sales. It becomes even more challenging when we consider the sale of pharmaceuticals between different geographic areas, such as states or nations. When the laws of one place conflict with those of another, it can cause issues and arguments, especially when it comes to stopping drugs from crossing the borders. Legalization in one nation might disrupt the illicit drug trade globally and could trigger conflict in nations that produce the drug, since they would lose a significant source of money. In conclusion, the argument fighting decriminalization and legalization of drugs highlight how complex the discussions surrounding drug policy are, the legitimate concerns expressed by opponents about public health safety, and the practical difficulties in controlling the drug market. They contend that any perceived benefits are outweighed by the possible negative ones, which include rising addictions, overdose of deaths, and societal expenses. The challenges involved in ensuring safety standards, managing distribution, and stopping unlawful sales are considered to be serious obstacles that may compromise the intended objective of drug regulation. The overall effects that drugs can have on an individual can be detrimental to their health, so I don't understand why we would want to discriminate all drugs and legalize some of them. I see what you mean when you say that some individuals may seek rehab more because they do not have to worry about punishments. However, how many young adults participate in drug usage because they believe it's cool? How many high school students and college students go to parties and believe that it's okay to partake in drugs just because their friends are? These younger adults will not seek rehab at this age. Rather, they will most likely continue to get drugs if the access is so easy. This can set them up for a lifetime of harmful side effects. In your debate, you discussed how legalizing and discriminating drugs will lead to less overcrowding in prisons. Although that may be true, that gives drug users the benefits of using drugs on the streets. Of course, these drugs can mess with their physical and mental state, which may even cause higher crime rates, especially in places like populated cities. With this, a large percent of the drug users will most likely end up in the prisons anyway, which means overcrowding will not be reduced tremendously. I see where you're coming from, how drugs can positively affect the medical world. However, did you ever consider that when these drugs are legalized, people will more commonly come into the hospitals seeking treatment for drug overdoses? This will lead to overcrowding in the hospitals and will put more of a stress on our doctors and nurses. In your debate, you said that if all drugs were decriminalized and some were legalized, this would change the focus on the help that drug users deserve. The reason that drug users do not seek help when they know it is available is because they are scared of the punishments. Did you ever consider why these people start taking drugs in the first place? They know it's not good for them, and if we legalize these drugs, then we are putting the safety of the population at more of a risk. People will see these drugs as safe if they are legal, and will use this as an excuse to use the drugs. You mentioned the criminal justice system and how the drug arrests for African Americans and Hispanics were most likely drug related. Don't you think if we legalize drugs, more people will end up dying instead of being in prison? In my opinion, it would be better for these people addicted to drugs to end up in prison and get away from the drug rather than to be continuing to use the drug and end up dying from it. Being in prison will help the people addicted to drugs get away from it and get the help that they need. The reason these drugs are illegal is because they are addicting and have terrible side effects on the body that commonly can lead to death.
Think about what we are losing out on when discussing all the benefits that these drugs have. Although some drugs are harmful to the body, some actually have benefits. For example, marijuana has benefits such as anxiety relief, nausea relief, appetite stimulation, and weight loss in AIDS patients. It is certainly harmful for younger adults to partake in drug usage because of the harmful side effects that it may cause. However, if drugs were not decriminalized and they were illegal, these young adults may still get their hands on these drugs. With this, they may go to sketchy sources, which could even cause more harm to their bodies. These drugs could be laced and filled with harmful chemicals. If the drugs are decriminalized and some are even deemed legal, these young adults will not be at as great of a risk of getting laced, especially in a college and high school setting. Although many drug addicts are seen in hospitals daily, this could actually help medical research. For example, if certain hospitals see patients with the same symptoms, they may run tests in order to find out what is wrong. These tests can lead to extensive research to find out the problem that the drug has caused and how to fix it. With this, the medical team will be able to help other patients with the same symptoms. If these drugs are not decriminalized or legalized, then there are certainly some patients who will refuse to come to the hospital. They don't want to receive punishment, however, going to the hospital will certainly increase these chances. With this, decriminalizing all drugs and making some legal will allow patients to feel more comfortable to seek help when needed. They will be able to walk into the hospital without the fear of punishment lingering. Within your debate, you discussed how we wish to avoid harmful chemicals that may be in drugs or medications. However, the drug problem in our society will not go away if we do not decriminalize drugs and if they are illegal. In fact, there are many drugs that are illegal that people still get their hands on even today. With this, not decriminalizing drugs and making some legal will actually increase the chances of individuals taking harmful chemicals, as they will go through an untrustworthy source that may have laced the drugs with toxic chemicals. These chemicals have much more side effects than some drug, causing the outcomes up to the body to be worse. Your debate also stated how drug usage can lead to problems with home environments, causing broken families. However, how many families are actually hiding drug usage? How many loved ones are not speaking out about the addiction in the home because they fear the punishment the individual might receive? If these drugs are deemed decriminalized and legal, these family members will reach out to help their loved ones, as they do not have to fear the punishments. With this can actually make a home life better and lessen the chance of a broken family. Although drugs can be seen as to have harmful and detrimental effects on individuals, those that surround them, and the environment, decriminalizing all drugs and legalizing some will certainly lessen the drug issues in our societal world today. Not as many individuals will be laced because they are not getting drugs from sketchy sources, as it will be decriminalized and legal. It will also encourage individuals to seek help when needed, which can even mend broken families back together. With this, it is very important to take these outcomes into consideration.